Hi boys and girls! Something new that I'm going to be starting with you is that I'm going to start posting a read aloud on our Google Classroom stream so that you can follow along. I was thinking about doing a chapter book, but I didn't have many chapter books at home because most of them are in our classroom. Then this week I got a surprise gift from your classmate Winter for Teacher Appreciation Week, which was so sweet of her. She got us this book for our classroom. It's called The Mystery of Craven Manor by Joy Wodhams. So I thought maybe we could read this book together. The back says, when runaway Matt is sheltered by Samantha in her creepy home, Craven Manor, he has no idea he is entering a trap. Who is the sinister Mr. Higgins and the even more frightening Great Aunt Dorothy? At Craven Manor, no one is exactly what they seem. When Matt finds his life in danger, he tries to escape, and so begins the most terrifying experience of his life. So I thought I'd read you a couple of chapters just to start out today. Chapter 1, The Runaway. The truck driver who dropped Matt at the crossroads had told him the station was only 5 minutes walk, but he couldn't find it. He couldn't even find the railway line, and he'd been searching for more than an hour. Now it was raining, huge heavy drops that dive-bombed the back of his neck, and his trainers were letting in water. They squelched with every step. He wondered what else could go wrong. He thought he'd planned every last detail, but here he was, only 3 hours from the home, and he had no idea where he was. To add to his misery, he'd lost his phone somewhere along the way. He shivered, staring out at the sodden landscape, empty except for the couple of crows blowing like black rags across the darkening sky. He was scared. Maybe he should give up, go back to that last house he'd seen more than a half mile back and ask the owners for help. But what if they asked questions? What if they called the police? On the horizon, he could see the woodland. He'd be drier there, might even be able to sleep as long as he didn't think about all the creepies that came out at night. Snakes, bugs, and bats, things that hunted and killed in the shadows. Not that he was afraid of stuff like that, he told himself. For a moment, he wished he was back at the home, sitting at the big kitchen table with the others, tucking into whatever Mrs. Doherty had cooked for dinner. It was Wednesday. Wednesday was usually meat pie and mash. If he hadn't worked himself into such a state, he could be there now. Instead of which, here he stood, cold, soaked to the skin, alone, and completely lost. There was no way back. Pulling up his collar, he'd sprinted for the distant line of trees. The rain grew heavier. He sneezed, a sudden explosion of sound that brought a flutter of complaint from a roosting bird somewhere nearby. That's all I need, he thought, a cold. Wrapping his jacket more closely around him, he lay down and curled himself into a tight, damp ball. He coughed experimentally and sneezed again. By morning, he decided gloomily, he would probably have pneumonia. Maybe Dad would be sorry then. Tears filled his eyes, real tears, and he sat up and scrubbed at them furiously. I'm not crying, he said, glaring out into the blackness. I'm not. Chapter 2, Tramp. In his dream, he was scrambling over the rocks towards a sea that broke onto the shore in a froth of green and silver. He flung himself at the waves, gasping at their coldness, not really bothering to swim, but letting himself be tossed back and forth like a stray cork in the tide. The air filled his lungs like sharp, clear menthol, and he let out a shout of sheer pleasure. Then his dad was calling him for breakfast. Mom was smiling down from the top of the cliff, and there was a smell of something frying. Well, mate, are you going to wake up, or do I have to eat it all on my own? Matt opened his eyes. The dream faded away. Don't you want any? I always say myself, there ain't nothing like bangers for breakfast. The speaker leaned forward and poked at the blackened frying pan that rested on a small fire of twigs, then squatted back on his haunches and regarded Matt from clear blue eyes that appeared much younger than the rest of him. His hair was long, white, and matted, his beard streaked dull yellow. He looked like an unkempt polar bear. A rich smell rose from the sputtering sausages, and Matt licked his lips. He was hungry, and the food, hot food, drew him in. His clothes, still damp from the night's exposure, clung to him as he sat up. He watched as the tramp delved into various hidden openings amongst his clothing, a many-layered collection of coats, blankets, and even what appeared to be a rag rug, all held together with pins and string, and produced a plastic plate and a tin lid, half a loaf of bread, grubby at the corners, and a penknife. Transferring the sausages from the frying pan to the dishes, he hacked off 2 thick slices of bread and threw them into the pan to mop up the fat. "You can have the plate," he told Matt, "seeing as you're the guest." From elsewhere in his wardrobe closet, he plucked a tin and a wire handle, a screw-top jar containing tea and another of sugar, and 2 paper cups, the sort that pop out of vending machines, which he stood on a stone away from the fire. A plastic lemonade bottle filled with water rested by his feet, and this he emptied into the tin together with a handful of tea and another of sugar. A quick stir with his knife, and he balanced the tin carefully on the fire to boil. "I always say there ain't nothing like a nice brew of tea to set you going," he said. "Now eat up, mate. Get your teeth into it." "What about forks?" asked Matt. "Forks? Blimey, what do you think I am, a walking denim homs? Use your fingers, mate." Matt stared at his plate. He was hungry, and the blackened fat from the frying pan disguised the dirt on the edges of the bread. Gingerly, he picked up one of the sausages and took a bite. It was delicious. Within 5 minutes, his plate was clean. The tea, stewed as it was in the color of treacle, tasted marvelous in the fresh morning air. Afterwards, the tramp scrubbed his beard with the end of his sleeve and gave a belch of satisfaction. "There, mate, not even the top chef at the Savoy could have done better than that." "Yes, I'm a good cook," he said complacently. "Have you always been a tramp?" asked Matt. "Tramp? Tramp? Gentleman of the road, that's me. I've been traveling for roads, must be near 50 years. Half a century. There ain't much I couldn't tell you about being on the road. Why, I could write a book about it. One of them books you see in shop windows. Self-survival, that's the thing. How to find food, how to tell the weather, how to sleep warm at night. Yes, I have got a good mind to do that one of these days. Write a bestseller. Have a Rolls Royce and caviar for supper and a pretty woman to wait on me." He grinned, showing stained but strong teeth. "Yes, I might just do that." "But what were you before?" asked Matt. "Before you came a gentleman of the road?" The tramp pondered. "Oh, this and that, odd jobs. Went to sea till I got drunk and missed me ship. Took a job in a factory then." He shook his head. "Didn't like that. Shut in all day and all that noise. No, the road's best." He rummaged among his clothes, producing a flat tin of tobacco and a packet of cigarettes. Carefully, he took a few strands of the tobacco into a paper, rolled it between his fingers, licked the end, and stuck the thin, crumpled cylinder between his lips. It flared dangerously as he lit it. Belated, he offered the tin to Matt. "Want one?" Matt shook his head. "No thanks." "That's right," nodded the tramp. "Nothing worse for your health," he said, and coughed to prove it. "One of these days I'll give 'em up myself, just like that, throw the tin away and never have another one." He lapsed into silence, and Matt watched the cigarette glow as the old man puffed. Specks of burning paper drifted into the air. "You've run off, haven't you?" Matt looked away from the man's shrewd eyes. "Stands to reason you'd be sleeping out for fun," the man explained. "Not a lad like you, not without a tent, you wouldn't, and a sleeping bag and one of them Primus things." "No," he said, staring at Matt speculatively. "I reckon you're on the run, my lad." Matt licked his lips but said nothing. "Now which is it, I wonder? Mom and Dad? Police?" The man gave Matt a reassuring smile. "You don't have to worry about me, you know. I'll not have you back home." "Home?" Matt mumbled. "Ah," the man nodded. "Was in one of them myself years ago. Did they hurt you? Beat me? No, of course not. They did me every week near enough." The man's eyes hardened. "Too independent for them, you see. They didn't like that, nor me running away half the time. Nasty things, Holmes." He took the ragged end of the cigarette from his mouth, examined it with regret, and stubbed it out on a flat stone. "Still, I expect they're different nowadays. I don't suppose the welfare will let him run up on you like they used to." They wouldn't anyway. Matt found himself jumping to the defense of the home. He wasn't going to have anyone saying bad things about Mrs. Doherty and Mr. Gardner. The others, some of his older boys who took such delight in picking on him, messing up his clothes, hiding his possessions, calling him Matilda because of his blonde hair and small stature, well, they were different. It's just not a real home, he finished. Well, I never had one of them, so I wouldn't know, said the man. He glanced up at the sky. 9 o'clock thereabouts. Time we should get some washing up done. The washing up was accomplished by swilling out with cups with the last inch of water from the bottle and wiping the tins and frying pans with a torn sheet of newspaper. Within seconds, they had disappeared into their various hidey holes, and the rope that had held everything together was being retied with a complicated series of knots. Well then, he said when he was finished, I must be off. Where are you going? Oh, this way, that way, maybe towards Birmingham. Matt stole a glance from the old man. He was dirty and smelly, but he had cooked him breakfast and he knew what he was doing and where he was going, and he could be company. Can I come with you? He asked. The man paused. Not a good idea, mate. Not a good idea. Why not? Don't like to be lumbered, the man said abruptly. I'm used to traveling alone. Matt sighed. Stand on your own 2 feet. Independence, that's the thing. The man stood up, scattered the dying fire with a mud-caked boot, and began to move away. Matt called after him. Thanks for breakfast. The man turned his head. And thank you. Thank you. He gave Matt a strange little smile and strode off. Matt only watched until the little old man disappeared from his sight. It was only later, after he had cleaned himself up and brushed down his clothes the best he could, that he realized something else had disappeared. His savings. The $50 that he'd scraped together from Christmas was gone.